introduce yourself. So I'm here with who?
Diana Kastenbaum.
Diana Kastenbaum. The legendary Diana Kastenbaum.
Yeah, legendary. Okay, I'll take it.
So Diana, you are from Batavia, where we sit right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting in this amazing house with quite a history.
Yeah, it's over 100 years old. It was built by Ian Rowell in 1914. And he was a big manufacturer of paper boxes, pill boxes, and cosmetic boxes here in Batavia. So this was the house that he built, actually for his second wife. He murdered the paramour of his first wife on another street, on Bank Street. So it was quite a scandal, but not in this house did the murder take place.
So he was acquitted.
He was acquitted in it was all-men jury, and a jury of his peers. He was a big industrialist in Buffalo. And it actually made the New York Times.
It
Was covered in the New York Times. And the man he murdered was a lawyer from Utica, and he happened to be the great-great-grandson of President John Adams.
Wow. So what quite a history. But you have quite a history here too. Your family, and they operate a long-established business here. Your father started it, right?
Right. So it's a tool and die casting company. It's called Pinnacle Manufacturing Company. It's a zinc and aluminum die casting company. And my dad worked in his brother's company after World War II. My dad was in the Navy, and after he came back from the Navy, he worked with my uncle to build up that business, but he didn't own that company. And then he started this company, Pinnacle, for his 3 children.
And your husband is he's a totally different career, right?
Oh yes, he's an actor and a comedian, working actor and comedian.
Hey Elaine, listen, if you smell anything decaying in the trunk of his car.
Grew up in the Bronx, and his name is Hiram Kasten. He doesn't go by Kastenbaum, it's a little too long, so it's Hiram Kasten is his stage name. And so it was very confusing, to some people on Kastenbaum, Kasten. Yeah, but he's an actor and a comedian, and he performed all over the country.
But like you, he has a great ability to communicate.
Oh yeah, you just met him, so you had a little conversation about baseball, and
he's fun to talk to.
Oh yeah. We had a radio show here in Batavia, and but we're no longer on it. We're canceled from the radio show.
But it was called Breakfast in Batavia.
Batavia After Breakfast.
Oh, Batavia After Breakfast.
Right.
So it was like midday.
Yeah.
And mid-morning rather.
Uh-huh.
And you did that for several years.
Yeah,
right?
a couple of years, and then when I ran for Congress, I couldn't do it. So then after I lost, I came back and joined him on the radio station.
Then you were away from Western New York for a long time. You were in California.
Yeah, so I was born and raised here and went to high school in Genesee County in Alexander Central School. And that's a little village about 300 near Attica, for those who don't know. And so I was, after high school, I went on to college and graduated with a degree in theater, in speech and drama, from the Catholic University of America.
So that explains it. So you both have a bit of a...
Yeah, I was an actress in New York.
So that's why you met, because you were there. Yeah. Okay, I see. And then you both moved back here because you missed your hometown. You want to be part of the family business, right?
Well, we were married in 1986, and we lived in New York for about a year. And then he had wanted to pursue his TV career.
Right.
And I said the best place to do it is LA, so we moved out to LA a year after our marriage. And then we stayed there for 25 years.
And he had considerable success. He was,
he was a working actor. He was on
the Seinfeld show.
Yeah, and he did a lot of, he grew up with those comics. I mean, those are his buddies, Seinfeld and Reiser and Larry Miller. Right. Yeah. So we all hung out at the comic strip together. I mean, that was sort of our home base, and Catch a Rising Star and the Improv in New York. So those were the 3 big clubs, and after I finished work, I'd meet him, and we'd all hang out at the bar, and I'd sit through many a late night set.
And that was an era where stand-up comedy was really golden age.
It was but in those days, in the early days, in the late 70s, early 80s, comics didn't get paid. It was like car fare,
Yeah.
cab fare.
Right.
Just to get cab fare was enough. They could drink at the bar for as much as all
It
they
wasn't
wanted.
like
but-
$20 million for a Netflix special.
No. And so they would pick up gigs on the weekends. And so he would be out in Long Island or New Jersey or upstate New York, and he would pick up money that way, and then he would always come back into the clubs. And then he was also the regular MC at Dangerfields on Sunday
Wow.
nights, and that's where, he put Ray Romano on the stage there. And so he's been doing this for quite some time.
So you're back here. You're a business person. You ran for office. You ran
Yeah.
for the same seat I ran for.
Yeah.
And can we talk about that a bit?
Sure.
So you ran against Collins, and
In 2016.
right.
Timing is everything, mate. Everything.
Yes, it is.
Your timing was great.
Yes,
Mine
it
was
was.
lousy.
It was, but I mean, you still put up a great fight.
Well, I
And
tried.
I think I want to say you were fighting him before you ran too. You were vocal. The reason why you ran is because you felt someone had to stick up to him.
I had my eye on that race in 2008, and I was working for Hillary on the West Coast, and I knew I was coming home someday. And
It's your hometown.
yeah.
Right.
And I was actually I was her staff car driver in the Secret Service motorcade.
But you were.
Yeah, so I drove 80 miles an hour on the 405 with her staff,
To keep up with her.
clutching the car.
Right.
And and I had to be clear about the Secret Service, and so we would go in. I would meet her at Van Nuys Airport with all the motorcade, and it was a very interesting volunteer gig.
Right.
And so I met her there, and that just I was in politics. I minored in political science when I was in college. It was also during a very active period in this country from, the 1969 to 73.
Right.
And so that was the Vietnam War, all of the moratoriums in Washington were there while I was going to school. So when I got to meet her, it sort of rekindled, I always liked this. I wanted to do it. And so I had my eye on the seat, but I knew I had to come home. I knew I had to run for office, which I did. I ran for a local office. I ran for city council at large here. There were 3 spots open, and Republicans swept it.
Right.
So that was in
But
2013.
do you also have your eye on Collins? You
I
knew
had
who
my
he
eye on
was,
Collins.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you knew he was problematic.
I knew it was problematic. I may have been a little naive, I think. Oh gosh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, no worries.
That's my daughter calling.
No worries.
So-
And you have one daughter who is also involved in politics a little bit, right?
Yeah.
She worked for, can I say it or no?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah,
She
we're
worked-
very proud of it.
She worked for Senator Schumer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then she's,
She was Senator Schumer's press assistant in the Capitol, in the leadership office for 2 years.
and she worked for your congressional campaign too.
Yes, and she was on my congressional campaign. So, and she also worked, very interesting enough, she went to Cornell, and she worked for Savante Myrick, the very young mayor
Right.
of Cornell.
Who's very popular.
Yeah, so she worked for him too. So she's been since very young age, and she's only 24 now,
Right.
but quite a
And then she
quite a
had
career.
that intense experience on your race too.
Yeah. That was it. It was a little hard. I wouldn't recommend and she would say the same thing. I wouldn't recommend family being involved in a campaign.
Right. There's
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's like and
you never get a break either because she's with you all the time.
well, that was the good thing.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't, finally we were together after all this time, driving all around the district.
Spending all that time together.
Yeah,
Right.
and it was. I had been with her in many years, so it was
But
day
what-
in and day out.
I gotta ask this, and I gotta say this to you, as someone who was in the same position. I ran against Collins, and people told me this same thing they told you, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Don't waste your time. It's unwinnable. And in my era, he was less popular because he started doing more and more nasty things, and then he was indicted.
Yeah.
But even before he was indicted, he was much less popular. When you ran against him, believe it or not, for the people listening, he was popular and respected. So why did you take on that risk? Because most people who run in politics never run unless it's a sure thing.
I didn't like what he stood for. I have progressive ideas, and I didn't like all the things that he didn't put much on the floor when he was a congressman. I mean, I don't know that he even sponsored any bills. I thought he was pretty ineffective.
He's been responsible for the renaming of post offices.
Yeah.
That's his big achievement in all those years in office.
Yeah. So he was pretty ineffective, and I felt that I could do a better job. And I felt that I cared more.
The thing that frustrates me is you're a business person. You know the value of a dollar. You are very good with people. You've been involved in this stuff your whole life. But you're in a place where our party, and as I'm saying this as a business person myself, is labeled as a party of, loafers who do nothing, that are just don't understand reality. Can you talk about that for a second and what you experienced here running for office?
Well, like I said, my ideas are rather progressive. Sometimes they don't align with the business people.
Right.
And but I found myself in a situation. First of all, I ran my own little company. It was a little tech company in LA for many, many years. And what I did was I trained and developed software programs for large law firms, and I went all over the country, mostly, and did a lot of work in LA.
To do what? What kind of work to
it was
monetize or make hours more efficient?
It was actually all of their search engines.
Got it.
It was, their databases. And
Right.
I trained not only the support staff, but also the attorneys. And so every new program, I had to be adept in many, many programs. And I went out and I got these gigs and I trained with them. And now, they have in-house trainers. People are very familiar with stuff, but years ago they weren't.
It was different.
So
it was literally big files that people would have to manually look through, correct?
Right.
Yeah, right,
And so, their document management systems,
Right.
where I trained a lot of that. But anyway, that was my business. So, but then when we moved back here in 2012, I had a family business here, and it was my dad's company, I was an owner of it with my brothers. But my dad started it. My mom had died in 2010. And I came back and I was going to work in the business. And I eventually became the CEO in 2014. And I should mention that we are one of the last die casting companies standing in all of New York State. There's a couple in New York City, but other than that, we are the last.
So look her up.
According to the North American Die Casting Association.
Look up Pinnacle.
Yeah, and I am also one of maybe only a handful of women CEOs in this particular field.
Right.
So it's a man's world I live in.
Well,
And
let's talk about that.
you came to my shop.
I did, and I thought this is a tough woman.
Yeah, with all the melting
Right.
furnaces and the molten metal.
Right. It's difficult for women in politics as well, and you know that. You get less support. There's not a lot of candidates. Can you talk about that for a second, and what you want to see change?
Well, part of the reason that after I lost that race in 2016, I said to myself, I want to see more women in politics. And so we have actually started a GLOW Women's Group, Women March here, and the GLOW stands for Genesee, Livingston, Orleans, and Wyoming counties.
I love that acronym.
Yeah,
It's powerful.
so there was the national march, but we started our own chapter of to do our own thing, not affiliated with the national chapter. And we had our first march this year, in very cold day in January. And Michelle Shoneman spoke, and Vanessa Gluszewski, and myself included, and it was only the brave at heart came out to weather this storm.
They canceled most of the other events.
Yeah.
But you guys went ahead,
we went ahead
in a blizzard.
Right, in a
literal blizzard,
yes,
and you
yes,
marched.
Yes.
So why though? Tell me.
Because
why do you
we
think
are
it's
so
bad?
we are so underrepresented, and I'm sorry. They used to say that, well, when you reach 20%, you've reached critical mass, or the tipping point. That's a tipping point when things start to change, when it starts to make a difference. But in this rural area, women aren't 20% of all the boards.
Mm-hmm.
I can name you a couple boards where they're virtually almost all men, maybe one woman.
Right.
And so that may be fine in larger urban areas, but in this rural area, in the Glow region, women are not, they don't have a seat at the table.
But do you also think it's important for women to get involved now, not just because of the traditional reasons for increased representation, but because what we see on a national level and the regression for certain issues, the objectification of women that's openly endorsed, the positions and the experience of our president himself?
You know, I grew up in the 70s and was in college in the 70s, and saw the whole the women's movement start at that particular point in time and become very active. And I always thought, well, now's going to be the time. Now's our chance. Now's our chance. It's only until 2016 and then all of the activism that has come out that I really feel now, we're not gonna back off anymore. And it's up to women. I mean, it's up to all of us. But women need to not back off. And I'm not saying that because many of us did not.
Right.
But I also think we need to educate some of the women who don't think that that there are any issues. People
who think everything's fine and this is the way it is. There's a natural order.
And they also have very they have ideas about. Take Planned Parenthood, for instance.
Right.
Sometimes when you go out, all you hear about Planned Parenthood is how people are having abortions, but we have a Planned Parenthood clinic here in Batavia, and we don't do abortions there. But we supply health care for women and children and
gynecological services and all manner of services.
And people who don't even. I've met so many women who said, they helped me so much when I did not have health insurance.
Oh yeah.
So
they helped me in my life.
And so it's things like that I'm not sure all women know.
Right.
Or realize.
Right.
They just hear one buzzword, abortion,
right.
And suddenly that's, no Planned Parenthood. But they do, it's just an enormous service here.
Talk about your race in 2016 for a second and what it was like. I'll just ask the question bluntly. Did you feel alone?
Okay, Nate.
So I think I'd like to hear your answer on this because...
Well, I went in thinking I wasn't going to be alone.
Right.
But ultimately I was alone. And it was very... because this is a race, as you well know, where they are absolutely positive the Republicans are going to win.
Right.
Even the Democrats are positive
right.
the Republicans are going to win. And so people helped me, yes, they did help me. All the chairs in all the counties helped me. They were very good about, giving me as much support as they could. But I didn't have the groundswell that after 2016.
You needed.
Yeah. And so I remember, and you probably did in the beginning too. I remember marching in the Genesee County Parade, and it was me, my daughter, and Teresa Schaefer, who worked with you.
I love
and it
her.
was, and so it was two of them carrying the pole, and the two ends of the pole, and me in the front, and it was like nobody else was coming out to march with us.
I'll be honest. Early in my campaign, it was shocking. I felt at times radioactive. I was like,
and you go to places and there'd be like maybe two or four people there.
Yes, and also you would go to parades and there's just would be no one willing to even carry your sign.
Yeah.
They'd be like, I'm not going to carry your sign because this is a stupid race. And I'll tell you a story. I went to an event early in the campaign. I didn't know you. I knew of you, but I didn't know you. I had no connection. Mm-hmm. And I was exhausted, as you probably were. I was exhausted, and I said something about, this is really a solitary experience. And I don't know if you remember, I clicked eyes with you, and I was like, I bet she felt the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I talked to you afterwards, and I immediately felt an affinity for you. And I thought, no matter what happens in the future for me, I am going to be supportive of even the races people think don't have a chance. Not only the races that we know are sure victories, the difficult races, the races that are difficult but important. How do you feel about that?
Well, after 2016 and 2017, I was pretty active in campaigning for local candidates, not just in Genesee County, but all across New York 27. In fact, I started a little Facebook group and said, you know, there's New York 27 canvassing caravan is going out, and I hit all 8 counties, and I canvassed with Brian Nowak, and canvassed with candidates in Livingston County, in Wyoming County, in all of the counties I hit, and I really, and I also gave money to candidates too.
Right.
You know, that's an important part too.
It is.
So I really worked as hard as I could to make sure that candidates, you know, had support and would get elected.
Didn't feel alone.
Yeah, and didn't feel alone. In 2018, when your race came along, I felt a little differently. It wasn't that I felt that, you know, it's your race.
Right.
I didn't want any, not that there would be any comparisons, but I didn't really want somebody saying, well, you know, she lost, what is she doing, you know. Well, I just didn't want any talk about it, so I sort of kept a very low profile. When asked, though I did. Jane Cameron asked me to do a party with Maggie Ridge.
You did.
And so I did. And
you were always extremely kind to me, which, believe it or not, a lot of people weren't for a long time.
Oh.
I would go to events and I'd be like, I never met these people before. Why are they being rude to me? And I'm like, why aren't we on the same side? I think there's a fight for resources in these races.
Yes.
And I think so, even if you're on the same side politically or ideologically, it's natural to feel some competitive tension across these many areas and these many districts, right?
Yeah. So I didn't want to. I felt that's your race. You know, you don't need me. You know, in the background, so to speak. And if I'm asked to help, I'll help, and I did.
Yeah.
And
like backseat driving, so to speak. Like,
yeah.
But you were supportive always. I thought.
Yes, I was. And you were most gracious to me when we had our Genesee County dinner. And you said very nice things about me, and my husband and I both appreciate it. It was very nice.
Well,
very
I am
kind of
appreciative of you. I think you're fantastic, and are you gonna move away from politics? It sounds like you're coming back now because you're doing the women's stuff here locally.
I'm doing the women's stuff. Then certainly nothing in 2019 and nothing in 2020. I don't know, I don't know where I'm going beyond that. Would I like to run for another office again? Yes, I would. But now is not the time.
But I think
neither is 2020 the time, and I don't know what office it would be.
But too often I think people, they go into politics, it is miserable.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't win, either because they're personally exhausted.
Yeah. But didn't you love the campaigning?
I liked it.
I loved it.
Well, I
thought it was great.
I loved it. I love meeting people. I'll tell you what I liked about it. I love meeting people. I love talking to people. That's great. Both of us are people. Yeah.
That's what I love.
What I didn't like is the constant, needling behind the scenes. You're doing this wrong. Or go there.
Like, everybody's
and everyone knows better than you, but they're not willing to do anything about it. They're not willing to join you and knock doors.
Yeah.
So, but I got used to it, and I got my skin got like thicker over time. Like it definitely made me more tough. But I think a lot of people, when they lose, they just disappear.
Yeah.
Either because the party suddenly finds a new toy, or they're just exhausted. I think people need to stay involved because, like you have a name now, and you have people that respect you, and people that like you. I like you. People out there like you. I think for the long-term health of the party, especially in the Glow region, we need you.
Right, and whether it's you can make change, and you don't necessarily have to. One of the things I said at the Women's March in my speech is, we don't all need to be leaders, but we all need to be participants.
Yeah, oh yes.
And that I sort of, I think that we all need to be engaged somehow, some way. And you got a lot of people who really became engaged with your campaign. And are you going to run it?
I'm desperately interested. I'll say this, I think that there's people out there, to the good side of politics, I want to talk about that because you mentioned it. Campaigning is fun, and meeting people is fun, and there's so many people that I care about.
I have to tell you this interesting story.
Go ahead, I'll hear it.
Okay, so you know Kathy Helko.
Yeah, of course.
She is a dynamo. She is amazing. So
super hard worker.
this
She's
woman,
a hard worker.
she is amazing. And I was like, you can't beat Kathy. But even though you did beat her in terms of getting closer to the winning the race.
I had some benefits. My guy was in deeper trouble.
Yeah. But Arnie, Dr. Matlin, Dr. Arnie Matlin.
Another great.
Oh, he was so terrific. He came aboard my campaign and he said he did some house parties for Kathy. And I said, so I asked him, would you do them for me? And he said, sure. So he had it down. I mean, it was a well-oiled machine with Arnie. He just had it all down. What you do, what you don't do, all of this. And he said, so when you come in, after you give your little speech, you sort of shake hands and you leave and get out because you have other parties to go to, or you have
move on.
Yeah, or you're going to be tired the next day
Right.
because you have stuff to do. But that was never my way. That was Kathy's way. Kathy's very good about coming in, doing it, fishing it, and getting it, and follow her around the States sometime. It's like boom, 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 boom. To her credit, it's amazing.
But you're a people person, so you'd want to sit and talk.
I would like, so Millie and I, and we wouldn't be eating all day, so we would be, so after everybody left the party, we'd sit down, we'd have a cup of coffee, we'd have a piece of cake, I'd talk to people, and I said, you're supposed to go now, and I would say, but I'm having such a good time, and I'm meeting all these wonderful people, and I'm making friends here. And then finally it got to the point where he actually told the house party people, said, all right, she's much different than Kathy. She's going to stay around. She's going to party with you. We were the last ones at every party.
And on the good side of that, that's why so many people still have strong connections for you.
Well, when I went to make the rounds and say thank you after my campaign, I went to all the committees, the chairs, their Democratic committees. And I got very verklempt.
Right.
It was like I looked at them and I felt like I let them down terribly. And then, these were the people that I actually broke bread with, and I felt so, just so touched that they worked for me. They let me in their homes, and I felt like I actually made some incredible friends in New York 27.
But do you see
that now? I mean, we go up, we hug, we kiss, it's
But do you see where we're going? Look, in 2016, it was very, very difficult. We had a better run when I ran. And we won Batavia.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
so glad you won.
We won Batavia, which
so
is
great.
very difficult to win, as you know.
Yeah.
We won Batavia by a pretty significant margin.
No, you won.
Well, where we as a team.
Yes.
So what I'm saying about that is, I see changes happening. People are not just saying, I'm going to vote Republican anymore. Mm-hmm. They're willing to look the other way. And when I visited the DCCC in Washington, they said, Nate, you guys took a deep red district, it's purple. No matter who you're running against, it's purple. Mm-hmm. People crossed over once, they'll do it again. Yeah. How do we get people to understand that voting for unions, voting for environmental protections, voting for Social Security and health care are good for the people of Batavia and beyond? What do we do next?
Well, I think you have to talk to those things, and you have to talk loudly to those things. I can tell you right now, you mess with Social Security in this town, people aren't going to be voting Republican anymore.
Right.
So, and look at the taxes that people, it's already been on the news in the last day or so. People are getting their tax returns. It's sometimes $1,000, $1,500 less than the average of what they
suddenly realize what that bill actually means, right?
And with Collins and everything he took away, so it's going to be.
So just keep chipping away at it.
Yes, keep chipping away at it. You got to have faith, and you can't sit on the sidelines.
Yes, get involved.
So.
Get involved.